All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our discussion today. My name is Patrick Donovan, and I am a Senior Director of Marketing at Udacity. I am very honored to be hosting today's webinar on a very important and timely topic. AI is everywhere, and it is changing everything. Today, specifically, we're going to zoom in on a particular use case, how AI is impacting your job search. Whether you're currently searching for a job or not, you probably will be at some point. So we like to believe this is relevant for a lot of people. How you find, search for, and apply to jobs, how recruiters screen and prioritize applications, what skills companies are looking for when they interview and hire. We're hoping to cover a lot of ground and provide a lot of concrete advice. Joining me today are precisely the people you'd want to hear from on this topic. We have three panelists that I'd like to introduce. First is Nirmala Ranganathan, a product leader at Amazon Search, where she's led hiring for a variety of AI and product roles, while also working on the side as a career coach at Exponent. Welcome, Nirmala.
Thank you. I'm excited to be part of it.
Great. Next up, we have Melanie Mitchell-Wexler, who has over 18 years of experience as a career coach and LinkedIn strategist, helping professionals elevate their brand, optimize job search strategies, and land meaningful roles. Melanie is also the expert instructor on two of Udacity's newest career courses, which we'll talk about a bit later. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. And finally, we have Robin Nigro, who is a seasoned career coach with Woken, specializing in employee development, career pathing, succession planning, and leadership coaching. And Robin also has a range of additional experience in a variety of HR roles prior to joining Woken. Robin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so excited to be here today. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah. So that is our esteemed panel of career coaches and experts. Quick note for those who are joining us, if you have any questions throughout the course of the webinar, please feel free to drop them in chat at any point in time. We will be monitoring that and we will be collecting those questions to bring forward in a live Q&A towards the end of our discussion. So use the chat and hang around for when we get to that live Q&A if you have burning questions you want to hear answered. In the meantime, we're just going to get started with a few of the questions we've prepared. And I'd like to first start with Melanie. Melanie, with AI, writing and editing has gotten a lot easier, and that extends to writing resumes and cover letters. What do you think is important for job seekers to keep in mind when using AI for crafting job applications?
That's a really great question, Patrick, because one of the things that I talked about in the courses that we created here on Udacity was one particular thing that people will hear me reiterate over and over, and that was capturing your voice. It's easy to put that information into whatever, whatever system that you want to use. But what you need to do is you still need to maintain a personality. You still need to maintain your uniqueness, but you also need to be able to maintain your voice throughout that, because that's ultimately who's being hired. And so that needs to show up in everything you do, whether it's your resume, your cover letter, or your LinkedIn profile. So it's really important that you maintain your voice and you understand your point of view.
And how does one find their voice? What is, the sort of cliff notes on how I might go about understanding what is the right voice for me to bring forth?
I always say one of the biggest exercises, people often jump right into their resume first before doing some pre-work. And it's really the pre-work that really helps you define that. And that's really what we call your unique value proposition. That's really going to help you determine, like, what do you bring to the table? What is the thing that you do that maybe somebody else doesn't? And I know a lot of people might be watching this and go, well, I'm just in data. I'm just a project manager. I don't do anything special, but you do. You do it in your way, and you've learned how to do it in a way that nobody else has done it. So that's what you're bringing to the table. So I really encourage people take that time. Don't feel rushed to create your resume. Like, everybody goes to the resume first, but doesn't do this pre-work. They don't look back on their careers and think about the things that made them stand out, and also the things that they've done that is special and been recognized for. All of that comes into being able to define who you are and the value you bring to the table.
And let's say I've done the pre-work and get to a point where I am actually ready to start applying to jobs. What is typically your guidance around the role AI and GPT and other tools could or should play there? Are you pro use the tools, use them liberally, or are you more of a mindset that people should approach things more manually and more carefully?
I am actually pro AI, and I know that may shock a few people being a career coach. And, I get people all the time like, well, I can just have AI write my resume. I'm like, yeah, you can, but there's a lot that you need to understand about these tools. It's not just submit it and, oh, voila, it's the perfect piece. There's a lot of editing. There is a lot of refinement, and prompts are huge when it comes to this. So, really understanding how to use these tools is first and foremost important. So I am pro AI, but I think these are great things for, like, putting in a job description and saying, hey, what are the key words that are coming up in this job description? What are the key areas that I should focus on in my resume? Now, if you don't have those, we need to stay with the truth. We need to stay with the facts, but you should be able to then be able to say, hey, how can I take this example or this, area of expertise and responsibility, and then apply that to a certain responsibility listed in the job description. So it's really as a guiding tool. It shouldn't be the overarching thing that develops everything. So there are really great features, and obviously summarizing, helping you edit down if you need help with editing, coming up with other words, but keep, again, true. You'll hear me repeat this a lot today. You'll be sick of it. Be real with your voice. If you wouldn't use a certain word, please don't use it in your resume. So
That's fantastic advice. Robin, I want to turn to you, and we got into sort of AI and the mechanics of leveraging AI pretty quickly, but I want to pull us back. Networking is long been a key lever that people talk about in the job search process and career development process. Some people love it and are naturals. Some people, it's like pulling teeth. How does AI change the role networking plays today? And do you think AI has a role to play to facilitate networking?
Yeah. Yeah. I think networking is more important than ever, especially with all these AI tools that are out there. It is that moment that you can really stand out, right? In this like AI influenced job market, right? So AI is great, just like Melanie said, for helping us streamline some applications, right? That keyword search, maybe helping us brainstorm, right? With some of those many, many things, and even get to the initial interview process. But it does create a more competitive landscape, right? It kind of evens that playing field. More people have access to create really great content because they can rely on AI a little bit. And so, where we can have a differentiator is being a really strong and proactive networker, right? So, like coming out, going to in person events, right? Making that in person moment and real human connection, showing who you truly are is really, really important, right? Getting those recommendations from internal people that are currently at companies, speaking to them, showing them that on a real human level that you can communicate, you can bring something new and different outside of AI, right? Because if we all have access to that AI, it is about how we use it. And it can really help support us, right? Use it to brainstorm those networking questions. Use it to come up with your communication style or tactic to get more responses when you're doing like cold outreach for networking, right? help it to brainstorm, understand company culture, right? But then turn it into your own space. So by no means does AI replace networking or even make it less relevant. I think it makes it more relevant than ever. And we just need to use it, right, as that awesome tool and space that it is.
I personally consider myself a reluctant networker. Do you have advice for people out there who just cannot stomach the thought of either going online and cold reaching out to people on LinkedIn or going to that local meetup? What sort of common tips or advice or motivation do you have for people who really have a hard time with that aspect of the job search?
Yeah. And I have a lot of clients who struggle with this. And I consider myself a pretty good networker. And I'll tell you, going to live in-person events, I have not found a casual way to introduce myself, especially if a group is already talking. You got to get comfortable in being uncomfortable. And I will walk in and just like gear up at the beginning, take a couple deep breaths and be like, it's going to be awkward for 30 seconds and then it'll be fine. And you walk in, you have what you're going to say. And sometimes it's tapping a shoulder and being like, hi, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm Robin. I overheard you guys talking about this. I would just love to join your conversation. And it's so anxiety inducing, but just practice that statement in the mirror over and over again. So you're just used and blurt it out and it's going to be awkward and it's okay. And most people are going to be like, yeah, I get it. I just did the same thing 5 minutes ago to get into this conversation. And then just on the motivation side, right? Sometimes bring in a friend or an accountability partner who's going to sit with you and they're like, let's draft this message if it's a cold outreach separately outside of this. And let's each choose to send it together. I think those accountability partners are really helpful with that. Or I'm not a big fan personally of time blocking, but I like task blocking. Like, here's the 2 things I'm going to do, however long this takes me. I'm crossing them off right now. And so if that's just sending that message, that's like your big win for that day and kind of reframing that mindset around it. And if they don't respond, it's not about the response. It's about getting that message out. But it's hard.
Absolutely. It is hard, but that's super helpful advice. And I think that what resonates most with me is that it's awkward for 30 seconds, not necessarily 2 or 4 hours. And I think keeping that in mind makes the situation feel a lot more approachable than it might otherwise. Great. Thanks, Robin. Nirmala, I want to turn to you. You're in your role, I know you are more of a practitioner in the AI and product world at Amazon, but you do a lot of hiring and coaching. And I'm curious about, once someone has been fortunate enough to get to that stage where they are beginning to interview, engage with recruiters, engage with hiring managers, what role do you see AI playing in the research and preparation process?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So assume that you have an interview call with a company. Days are gone that you go and learn about the company during the interview. You should know about the company before you even get into the interview process. So AI comes in help so that you can analyze recent company news, product launches, strategic directions. For roles, AI excels at aggregating and synthesizing company information. So you can use AI to analyze recent earning calls, for example, or press releases or industry reports, their strategic directions, challenges, growth areas. I use Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, etc. for real-time company intelligence, recent news, earnings, strategic shifts, etc. And also, you can upload job description and then ask Claude or ChatGPT for targeted insight extractions. So this varies by roles. So if you are applying for applied scientist role, then you can use Consensus AI, Semantic Scholar, etc. for research mapping and publication analysis. Whereas if you're an engineer, you can look at GitHub Copilot or Cursor AI for tech stack explanation, architecture understanding of that company, not your own thing. And if you're a product manager like me, you can use Product Hunt AI and SimilarWeb for competitive landscape analysis. Now, the key principle is, this is very important because this is a double-edged sword. Balance breadth with depth. AI can accelerate overview gathering, but technical roles need genuine domain expertise beyond AI summaries. And also just take it with a grain of salt whenever I'm saying it, because if you don't have substance in what you are talking about, that's nothing can help. So that's first thing. And second thing is targeted practice. We underestimate practice because you mentally prepare, you think you are ready, but when you actually verbally saying the story, you feel like you're like convoluting and it's not crisp, etc. So role specific preparation and targeted practice is very important. So for example, in case of product managers, I do a lot of case study frameworks, scenario generations, and product intuition is very important in terms of product manager roles. I use STAR framework. Everybody is very familiar with STAR framework: situation, task, action, and results. However, people make a lot of mistakes in interview where they spend a lot of time on situation and task. When it comes to actions and result, like quick, I did this, customers were happy, very good. There's no substance there. Spend the time on action, what you actually did. Even if you're a product manager, you need to get into technical aspect. Days are gone that you don't code, you don't need to understand technical details. So you need to get that. And metrics is very important. So you need to practice a lot. And you can simulate the practice through try exponent. For example, I'm coaching there a lot, where people practice it and they thought one session is enough to practice, and then they set up like 5 or 6 more sessions because they found that depending on the questions they need to prepare differently. And then the last thing is the success factors. So you have to deal with the limitation in AI. When you use ChatGPT and all, they have a cutoff. Recent developments, they might not have the data. So you have to cross-reference everything, validate it. And then over preparation can make you sound scripted. So you have to maintain that genuinity and spontaneity in there. And also AI can hallucinate company facts. So you have to validate technical details about it. Just don't make up with it. So the winning formula is that use AI to accelerate research and structure preparation, but ensure final insight and responses are genuinely yours. The goal is enhancing your natural communication, not AI generated responses. So when you prepare for an interview or even work with the recruiter, I'm so surprised that days are gone that recruiters are just checking your resume and you're apt for this role. I have gone through recruiters, like they spend 2 hours with me scrutinizing exactly am I apt for the roles, even getting into the technical details. So if you have a recruiter call, don't underestimate it. Success depends on your authentic expertise and genuine curiosity. AI is there to help augment understanding the customer, understanding your role, and practicing, but it's up to you.
Really great point you're making. I don't think there was ever any excuse for candidates to not do sufficient research prior to going to an interview. That is particularly the case these days when it is so easy to get a summary of pretty much any company based on some of the tactics you mentioned. But there's a lot of really interesting information in there. I think we might be unpacking as we can continue the conversation here. Melanie, I want to talk to you about something that we see quite a bit of, if not in the news, then certainly on social media. There's a lot of horror stories out there about the sheer volume of applications that an individual role might be getting. I know working at Udacity, and when we're hiring for roles, I can see firsthand in our HR tools what that volume looks like. What should people understand about standing out in a pool where there's 1,000 plus 2,000, 10,000 applicants? And I don't know if you can speak to this specifically, but I know we got a lot of inquiries in pre-registration about the infamous ATS, applicant tracking system. Everyone's trying to figure out, are there ways to game that to get your resume seen at the top of the pile? Maybe just speak to the volume game that applicants face and what strategies are for standing out.
So I'm going to put so I'm a former recruiter. I recruited for over 18 years. I'm going to put my recruiter hat on here for you guys. Yes, recruiters, when they put out a position, it is not uncommon upwards of thousands of resumes. I mean, that's that sounds very, well, why should I apply? Why should I bother? And the reality is this, I will tell you from a recruiter perspective, close to 90% of anybody that applies for one given job is typically not honestly matching a majority of the qualifications. And I used to say 75%. I would push that up closer to 80% now in terms of looking at the job you should be applying for. So I think first and foremost, understand there's a lot of reasons people apply for certain jobs and things like that, but you're not necessarily competing against a majority of people that are honestly qualified for that role. So that's how we kind of break those numbers down. For the ATS system, I'm going to be very honest, there's a lot of fear mongering out there right now about the ATS system. It's, the big bad robot, the machine. I wish I had a robot when I was a recruiter. I wish that would have made my life so much easier. Here's the thing. If AI and the ATS were directly connected, you would get a response, honestly, from every single application you ever submitted. That's how you actually know that there's human beings behind the scenes, and because of that overwhelm. So I want to dispel that belief of like the ATS is a bad thing. It truly is a tool for the recruiter. I got started in recruiting where I walked in and there's people that had resumes in file cabinets, and that's how they found people. I was very fortunate. I worked on multiple ATS systems. Everything is, I would say most of them are all the same. There's bells and whistles that companies pay for that get into more of those specifics. But a couple of things you should always be in mind of. Formatting. A lot of great, templates out there that you can purchase or use and want to make them splashy, things like that. You don't need it. Keep it very simple. Keep it readable. ATS systems don't tend to like those types of overly formatted resumes. They still come through in the system. You still stay in the system, but they just get wonky. So guess what happens? If I, the recruiter, then stumble on I come across your resume and I see it and it's all messed up and lines are this way and that way, I'm not likely to take the time to read it and try to decipher it because I've got all these other resumes to look at, right? So simple formatting is the key. Readability is the key. We don't talk about formatting enough. We often talk about, which is the next point, is keywords. But keywords have to have meaning. They have to have substance. To Nirmala's point, you have to be able to back this up. So yeah, you could keyword stuff your resume with all those keywords, but if you can't back that up on a phone call or an interview, you're not going to get very far. So those keywords should show up, but they should also relate to how you've done the job. And one of the tips that I give to people is try to mirror the language. So for example, if they're using the word, different types of words that maybe have the same meaning in your industry, it's okay to kind of switch that to those words because that's how that company sees that position. So you do have some freedom to try to be able to paint that picture. And that's a good way of thinking of your resume. It's painting the picture of a person. If I read your resume today, do I see you doing this job? So don't underestimate that there are people reviewing your resume. There are people reading your resume. The ATS system is set up to help the recruiters narrow down that search. It's a funnel system. So I'm going to take project manager, maybe with data analytics and maybe a software, and it's going to give me all of the people in the system that match those keywords. And from there, I'm going to start to decide who is the best match, who goes in a yes pile, who goes into a no pile. And again, the yes pile is based on the qualifications of the job. So don't, there's a stretch sometimes, and then there's big stretches. So what I would say is try to keep them, 80% and above in terms of qualifications. That's probably going to get you in the high percentile of being seen.
Very concrete advice. I guess a quick question. I understand it's not about gaming ATS per se. Do you think ATS systems are evolving as rapidly as everything else is evolving with AI? Like, are they truly integrating the technology as much as we seem to believe they are, or is that a myth?
I would say while there is some integration, it's not happening as fast. There's one of the things that's probably the least funded and the least supported feature in any significant company, and that's going to be the recruiting and the HR department. The I'll tell you from an internal point of view, recruiters are viewed as you don't earn us money for the company. Now, my recruiter friends out there, we all know that's not true. We know we're helping identify talent. We're, the ATS systems are often very outdated, to be very honest with you. It's the last technology in the system that's actually invested in regards to the company. And oftentimes recruiting departments are the first to be eliminated, because it's the view of like, oh, that recruiter could do the job of 2 or 3 people, which is also adding to some of the frustration. You've got one person trying to manage anywhere from 5 to 10 job openings at any given time. So I think that's one of the things that we have to start deciphering. Again, the system is not perfect, and I don't want it to paint it like it's a perfect system, but there's a lot of misinformation. That was one of the biggest things that when I started coaching, when I transitioned from recruiting to coaching, I kind of assumed, like, I came from this bubble of a world of recruiting, and I found out that, like, wow, there's a lot of things that people just are not telling the truth on and are sharing misinformation. Again, the system has a lot to work on, but what I also tell my clients today, you and I are not going to change that system today or tomorrow. So we have to figure out, how do we work with the system that we've got today? How do we do that? Because that's not on the candidates to change the system. That's a company issue, and that's another fight and another battle. But we've got to work with the tools that we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nirmala, so we've been talking about AI tools and technology to facilitate the job search process. I also want to take a minute to acknowledge that increasingly AI skills and AI roles are very in demand and very popular. And there might be some elements of applying for jobs that are AI or AI adjacent that are different than applying for other jobs. I actually don't know if that's true. I'm just kind of winging it. So I want to put that to you as someone who probably understands a bit better. Um, what do you advise job seekers who are specifically interested in getting roles in, whether it be at an AI centric company or an actual AI or ML engineering role, maybe a research scientist, maybe an AI product manager? Are there any nuances to navigating that job search process?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I answer it, I just want to add one thing that Melanie shared. When you give your resume to ChatGPT or Perplexity, it will add a lot of AI ML stuff in there, LLMs and prompt engineering, all those things. You can add it, you can get passed through probably the recruiter, but once you come to people like me questioning, you will soon be discovered that you don't know anything about it. Just theoretical knowledge is not suffice. So I have a trick that I use. So look at your resume. Every bullet point, you need to write a 2-pager on that bullet point. Can you write a 2-pager on that bullet point? Just to convince anybody reading it that you have really done it, you have substance, then add that bullet point. Otherwise, even if you have done it, you don't remember it, remove it. It's the quality that matters. Just wanted to say that I have been reviewing a lot of resume. Oh my God, I'm exhausted with AIML. People say AIML, they're not AIML. They are just using data. Just let's be honest. We are far from that. We are using LLMs to do a lot of things. We are in robotics world that it can do it. So substance matters. So to answer your question on preparing for that process, for not just for AIML specific job, non-AIML specific job, also sometimes they ask for these. So it's very important to shift from theoretical knowledge to demonstrating problem solving, actual problem solving, real world problem solving, end to end ML implementation. There are cases where they might have worked on a part of ML process, but the expectation is they should know end-to-end ML process. And beyond surface level, able to explain the trade-offs, the decisions they are making. And then they have to connect their technical work to measurable business outcomes. Falling in love with solutions. I have tried XYZ, I have prototyped, great. You have great knowledge, but what's the business outcome? And then staying current, continuous learning approach given rapid evolution that's happening there. I feel like it's excellent time for learning because days are gone. We have to wait for 2 years for some new versions to come. Meanwhile, you are like, okay, I'm just doing my job. Every single day you have something new or the other. It's like excellent opportunity for us to learn. Learning is the constant thing you have. However, you can get overwhelmed. So I pick and choose what I want to learn. I wake up at 6 o'clock, I spend 1 hour learning. That's it. And I constantly learn and I ignore some of the things I don't want to learn. So you have to pick and choose what you want to learn. I'm also passionate about ethical AI, fairness, bias in the system because AI ML comes with that. So learn about it because we need to make the AI more humanized. So knowledge around it will distinguish you from others. I'll tell you some examples, right? You lead with an outcome for it. I interviewed someone who increased the deployment frequency by 40% within a quarter. That immediately, okay, you have done something business outcome. Now I'm keen to listen to what you have done. There is also things like, how did you problem solve within constraint? We are in a world where the capacity will be very low. Resource constraint constantly is there. Two pizza team is not like real two pizza team. Now 1 or 2% doing the work. How did you problem solve with constraint? That doesn't come across in the resume. You should be able to explain it. Cross-functional leadership without authority. You should be able to influence others. It's not a product manager's job to influence others. It's everybody's job to influence others. You are going to work with multiple teams. You will be consuming APIs from multiple teams to produce that LLM model. Learning velocity in unfamiliar territory, uncomfortable territory, because we are all constantly learning. How can you survive in that world of constant learning in the uncomfortable territory? So what makes your story memorable in order to prepare for AIML is the specificity over generalization of it. Just be more specific that what metrics you have improved, what did you actually do? And then the process innovation is also important. So don't spend too much only on technical skills. How did you improve the process? How did you make it more efficient for others to consume? And also very, very, very important, be humble. Humble confidence is very important. I realize that sometimes I say that, you know what, in hindsight, it's a stupid mistake. I should not have done it. This is what I learned from it. There's nothing wrong in saying that. Being humble, being admitting, being self-reflecting on what you have done, what you would have done differently is very, very important. And role-specific, angles like engineering roles, you have to balance with technical excellence with business impact. How did you mentor others? But for product manager roles, user empathy, data-driven decisions. Nowadays, you are skilled as a product manager to do data-driven decisions yourself. You don't need an analyst or anybody to make the decision. For applied scientists or researcher, they should have theoretical works, paper presentations, and complex concepts. They can explain it clearly. They have to have intellectual curiosity beyond the specificity. The curiosity makes it very important to stand out. I have interviewed somebody and we were debriefing in Amazon, and the interviewer said, you know what, that candidate taught me something. I'm going to apply it. That is like teaching moment. How can you teach people in the interview that what you have done, that they can take it back? How can you think beyond your own area? How did you think about the entire system, stepping back? What is your growth mindset? How did you fail and how did you get over it? So these are very important things beyond the resume. You can't bring that in the resume. So when you prepare for it beyond the technical things, think about these areas, what you have done in the past. It's very hard to remember all those moments because we are used to not appreciating those moments and then we just skim it through. So think about it, write it down, and then bring that to life.
Great. And there's a ton packed in there. That was a super helpful response. I was trying to even take my own notes, and I don't think I was able to keep up. I
Yeah,
love
sorry, I
the
got
sentiment.
excited about it
No,
because
it's
during an
great.
interview, I learn something constantly. If they are saying the same old things, then you're not standing out.
Precisely. And I think if there's a theme I'm picking up on in the conversation so far, it's AI makes generic easy. And what will always stand out in hiring, no matter what technology comes along, is your unique story and the specificity of your experience. And if you can't deliver that, then no amount of tooling is going to help you progress. Maybe you can skip the queue in the resume pile, but it's not going to help you get further beyond the recruiter or the hiring manager. So that is really great advice, I think, for all to hear. I do want to note, at least I'm experiencing an issue with the chat in the platform. I think others are too. So apologies. We're working on that. We're going to keep the conversation flowing. We captured a lot of questions already, so I'm not going to let that slow us down. But I do want to acknowledge it in case anyone is wondering what's up. Robin, turning to you, I mean, we've kind of touched on a couple times already. AI is moving incredibly fast. Since we've been in this webinar, it's been about 40 minutes. There's probably already been some new AI development that we will all go back to in 20 minutes and learn about. That adds a level of burnout to arguably an already burnt out workforce. Have you been seeing that play out in your conversations with candidates? How is AI contributing to burnout? What guidance do you have for professionals who might be feeling like they just can't keep up with the pace of change right now?
Yeah, I am definitely seeing this with clients I'm working with. And part of it, I think, yes, AI is ever moving, ever so fast, right? And it's somewhat impossible to keep up with in all areas of our lives, right? But to Melanie's point, and what I remind people is that, individual companies, ATS, like applicant tracking systems and platforms, they're not like instantaneously applying all of these new AI developments, right? They have an internal engineering team, just like any company you worked for, right? And so we got to keep that in mind. And that's a big way that I try and combat that burnout is reminding clients that, we're getting fed all of this information, and that's where our stress and our anxiety is coming from. It's not the reality of it that's out there, especially specifically in the job search and what we're doing. So we can use those tools, and a real person is also using those tools, right, to help guide and find your resume, right? So we just want to find that overlap. And especially for my clients in more technical spaces where AI is, right, impacting their work, potentially the work they would do day to day, I do see a lot more of that anxiety and then leading to burnout, right? But what I remind them is there are courses on this. You are staying as up to date as possible, right? This is a part of your job and your search. And to Nirmala's point, right? Bring it up. Share something new that you've learned in your interviews because this is new to everybody, which is exciting, right? This isn't something that you are behind on and trying to catch up in. This is new everywhere. So it's, again, a little bit of an even playing field. You get to come in, you can share that knowledge, you can share that information of what you've learned, even if it is on like, I actually learned this new way to utilize AI to revamp my resume or to help me prep for these questions because it helped me brainstorm, right? So for those job seekers that are really feeling this burnout, because it is hard right now, we are not in an easy job market for a lot of many reasons, is really stay clear on what your job search goals are, right? And really focus on the AI tools that are going to directly support the roles that you're working in, or support your needs, right? Not every shiny new AI thing that comes out is something you have to know everything about, right? There are parts that we can shut out, right? If they're not in our industry or not going to help us right now, we can make that choice to compartmentalize and be like, no, I'm going to stay in my lane, right? Second, and kind of along that, right? We can sort of build in these boundaries, right? And how much time we are spending in understanding all these new and ever changing technologies, right? Again, get that clarity, get that focus. And then really remember, connection is still key, right? Deep down, people really trust human connection where they still have some skepticism around AI. And so if we can really build that in, right? Lean on your network, lean on your human relationships. While AI can support your job search, it can't replace who you are as a person. And so coming back to that, right? And just using it a little bit as a support and not the end all be all to you, how you will get your next job is a good reminder.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the sort of sentiment that it's about that AI human combination, how you're using the tool, how openly you're using it. I honestly still have guilt. I'll use AI for a work project and somehow still feel weird about it when I know everyone's telling me I should, and that's the thing to do. I still have this feeling of like they're going to figure out I used AI, and so that's surprisingly difficult to get over. But I think it's critical. Before moving to my next question, actually, Nirmala, I know you also had some thoughts and experience or resources around just burnout and how to work with that. I want to just give you an opportunity to speak to the same sentiment.
Yeah. Oh my God. I get so much information. I joined so many newsletters and blogs that I thought, okay, this is only 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Like I'm just don't remember most of what I read sometimes. So it's extremely burnout. Searching for a job and working in a company these days is also hard. If you are purely searching for a job, is a different story that has its own problems. But you are working a company, I'm working in Amazon, like there's no 8 hours policy, like 10 hours, 12 hours sometimes, and then in parallel you have preparing for a job, etc. It's so much burnout happening there. Volume of information overload is there, so you need to pick and choose what you want to learn. There's so many things in LLMs. If we go into LLMs, the models itself, like 10 different models, you get bogged down into learning these models. So it's very important to select and choose what you want to learn. There's no hurry to it. Second, I am a person who cannot learn by myself. I learn from others' experience. So I set up a lunch and learn in my company where everybody comes and present AI products, AI ideas, what they come across, the prototypes that they have done. So tap into your network internally in your company as well to learn about it. It's not only you in a cube learning about it. There are other people like you trying to learn all those information in there. And just feel free to express your thoughts to others. It's not just only learning and absorbing, explaining the thoughts, what you understood, how it can apply to the real world is also important. It's very interesting that I set up the lunch and learn, and it is about the AI topic. And every week we come and present about the AI topic. Everybody wants to join, nobody wants to present because they are afraid of whether it's accurate or not. I said, there's no foolproof 100%. Let's all learn. So it is a little bit of a nervous space as well because there's so much information happening, and today what is happening can be changing tomorrow. There's something else coming in, but don't afraid of it. We are all in the same space. But as long as you are learning, that's what matters.
Precisely. I know I have a not insignificant amount of bias on the topic, seeing as I work at Udacity, an online learning provider. But my take on this is also find what works for you. People learn differently. Some people might love the Udacity platform, and that's where they go. That's where they get their information. We have a lot on certain topics, and it works well for a lot of people, and we take great pride in that. For someone else, they might prefer to learn in a very different way, and there might be a different newsletter, a book, gosh, a hard copy book, go figure, that they prefer to learn that way and sit down and have dedicated time. So find what works for you and stick to it, and don't get distracted by the multitude of other options flying by. I think is a theme I heard coming out a little bit there. All right, I want to move on to some questions we've started to get from the audience, at least before chat went down, but I think we did a good enough job of capturing some of the early questions and questions folks submitted when they registered. So I'm going to kick off with you here, Melanie. You mentioned earlier in the conversation finding your unique value proposition and really making sure that shines throughout the process. Maybe let's go a little more foundational. How do you what's the trick for sort of identifying one's unique value proposition? I'm sure that's could be a long seminar, but if you had to distill it into a few key points, how can folks on the call understand how to do that for themselves?
Well, I will say I do have an exercise in the courses I help create with Udacity, and I will just also say there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes and curating this information that shows up in these courses. And so I think it's important to know they're not AI generated. There's a lot that goes into this, and so there are some exercises there. But to kind of give a really quick run through of it, I kind of break it down into three categories. So like, what are your strengths? Like, what are the people, if you ask five people, like, if you could describe, how would you describe me? What would you say that my greatest strengths were? And I typically will say, these need to be people that you've worked with in the past. If you have access to like former managers, supervisors, what are the trends and the traits that repeatedly show up in that? Now we can take that information and actually ask AI to kind of sort that information into like buckets or categories. Again, utilizing it, but not taking away the personality, which both Robin and Nirmala talked about, of like maintaining your unique voice and your unique self. The other aspect that we want to do is now take our career and what have been the types of roles, what have been the types of softwares that we've utilized, how have we utilized, what are some of the successes that we've had? Where have you particularly thrived? We're not all like, for me particularly, I love facts, but I am not a data person. Like, I don't want to figure out how to get the data. Just give me the data and then I'll use it. Okay. Like that. I'm not a numbers person. So I know for me, like, getting into a job where I would have to do something like that is not going to be where I thrive. And then lastly, personality traits. What do you love to do? Like, what type of environments do you love to be in? These are all unique to yourself. All four of us, for example, could go through this exercise and we're going to have different aspects of the things that we want to do or how we like to show up. I'll use myself as an example. One of the particular traits that I found, I was never the kid that knew what she wanted to be when she grew up. I fell into recruiting. No recruiter, by the way, ever grew up to say, I want to be a recruiter. Recruiters they fall into the field. I ended up staying in recruiting for over 20 years because it tied to a job I had previously that I found out I really love talking to people, even though I'm an introvert. I really love connecting with people. I love having challenges. I don't necessarily like the same thing every single day. So I do like to be able to, have challenges. I like to write. So I do have a creative outlet to me. So these are all things that I know I want to have in my career, but these are also tying into my unique value proposition in terms of who I am and what I offer. And then that's how we start to sell ourselves and differentiate ourselves from, we're not just a pool of project managers where we each have unique sets of skills and talents.
I just want to add one thing to this. When you come up with your value proposition, it is not just about influencing the recruiters and the company to hire. It's also important for you that whether your values fit into their culture. I usually go to the interview and I say that if this is what the company is, please don't hire me. Write it down in here. Don't hire me. Because I don't like to do monotonous work. I want to work on things that instill my curiosity. I want to work on ambiguous stuff. I want to work on a risk taking. If this is something that just maintain the existing platform, that is not me. I'm not going to enjoy it, so don't hire me. So it's a two-way things decisions. And I spend most of my time with my manager more than my husband. I spend most of my time with the teams that I work in more than my kids. I have a choice that I can choose whom to work with. So don't think that it is only to influence others. They have to influence you that you are the right person for this.
Precisely. Yeah. It's super important to be clear on your own values and to manifest that throughout the process. Robin, one thing I want to talk to you about is the catch-22 that exists in the job market these days, or at least that you hear a lot about, which is entry-level jobs not being exactly entry level. Can you maybe speak to advice you have for folks who are earlier in their career journeys, maybe recent grads, or maybe they're switching from one career to an entirely different one and effectively starting from scratch? They don't have that years of experience. Are there particular tactics or ways those folks can stand out and prove to hiring managers and to companies that they might have X years, they may not have X years of experience, but they are a fit for the role?
Yeah. Yeah. For individuals who are first walking out, right? Like walking out of college or whatever school you maybe have been a part of, and truly, right, you maybe only had internships or part-time jobs, right? Nothing really in that career space. You're truly, truly brand new. I agree. It can be very hard. You feel like you are looking at quote unquote entry level jobs and they're asking for 2 to 5 years of experience, right? Or 2 to 3 years of experience. And I probably sound like a broken record, but this is where networking is going to be amazing. Go to your college career fair because those individuals have chosen to be there. They have gone and signed up, showed up in person, right? Or virtually if it's a virtual career fair. But go, show up with your resume ready, right? With your purpose statement, right? Your elevator pitch, your whatever we want to call it today, right? Of who you are, that personal branding statement, your quick little bit about yourself, and follow up, right? Connect with those people on LinkedIn, see if you can sit down with them in networking conversations, um, and really make your presence known because that is going to be the big difference, right? They do have roles that they are open to taking, right? And the big thing too, if you are someone with a technical degree, sometimes those engineering or internship spaces are a really good way to get your foot in the door. And oftentimes they are paid, maybe not what you're looking for, but take them and use them. And during that internship opportunity, I know when I was in college, I wasted a lot of them. Network. Be in there talking to people, ask if you can join meetings, ask if you can join, different events, different groups, talk, meet everybody that you can and really make your presence known because that's going to be your best case scenario, right? Because when you are entry level, you don't have a lot to say for yourself, right? So it's going to be all about how you show up and showing that you can really learn and put boots to the ground and be a worker in that space and connect on that human level. For those that are transitioning, slightly different. You're kind of in a similar, you feel like you're in a similar boat to when you were first starting out, but you're not. You have a lot of really amazing transferable skills that entry level professionals just don't have yet because they're building them, right? They're new. But taking a look at that, you can work with a coach or hey, use AI, right? Get in there, put it in, say like, I've been in customer service work. I want to transition into a program manager role or a product manager role, whatever it may be. Say, here are the skills I'm seeing are required for these job postings. Here's the skills I have. Here's what I've done in the past. How do they overlap? How do they relate? Right. And start doing some of that brainstorming and coming up, right? I know STAR statements were mentioned today. Use that, right? Come up with concrete examples showing that you can do this work, right? I know I work with especially a lot of teachers right now who are transitioning out of teaching and they're so worried. They're like, but all I've done is teaching. Like, oh my God, you've done so much, right? You've lesson planned, you've program managed, you've put in all of these new programs and initiatives in place, which is huge, right? To be able to follow through with that. So it's just learning correctly how we speak about those transferable knowledge and skills, right? To show that we do still have 80% of what we need in that job posting. And networking is still going to be really, really important. What I tell my clients is if you have 80 plus checked off on the job description that you do and it's clear, networking is great. It's an added bonus. If you have less, right, you're going for that reach job, you're probably going to need to know somebody who can really speak and advocate for you on both ends, right? So reach out to those past managers, those past coworkers you worked on hard projects with. But it's hard. It's hard for sure.
Can I add a tip? Can I add a tip in here? I heard from early career somebody he said that he searched for a job that is very remote that nobody wants to apply. Because everybody wants to be in Bay Area, Palo Alto, Seattle. Now you have so many pool, and somewhere remotely in Tennessee, 1 year on the job, very less applications. So why not try it? So I thought, okay, that's an interesting strategy to follow.
Yeah.
And another one fact is, I was an engineer before moving to product, so I have done mobility. And believe me, this is the best time to also move around, because an engineer is expected to have product thinking and product managers expect technical thinking. And I can tell you that the best product managers I have worked with have been an engineer or scientist in the past. So don't be afraid of mobility.
Yes. And what I'll touch on that with going to the remote like location, if you are new or transitioning, be willing to go in person and apply to those in-person roles. They have less applicants and you'll learn so much more. Like when you're further in your career, remote work, great, right? You're tried and true, you're steady, you know what you're doing. You are early. I can't even imagine my first job having been fully remote. I would have learned so much less. So be open and ready and willing and excited to go into an office and work alongside other people.
I would just add something too, that I'm seeing a big thing when it comes to technical positions and even non-technical positions. Your soft skills, your communication style, all of those things are becoming more and more important. A lot of people have, and I'm seeing this especially with my technical and my IT and tech engineering clients that are succeeding with the technical portions of interviews, but are struggling with that more of that personal side. And that's a nuance that's starting to become more and more, even with accounting and finance, where maybe in past years we've relied more on the technical base, the how to, but now they're getting questions of more of like, how do you handle conflict? How do you handle a project, stress and deadline? So be prepared for those questions and don't underestimate that's where you can actually shine. If maybe you don't have as much of that technical expertise as the next person, but you have that ability to adapt to a team, you show that cross-functional work ability, communication style, all of those things carry a lot of weight in determining who somebody's going to go with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that brings us just about to time, unfortunately. I feel like we could probably log another hour or two on this topic, but to respect everyone's time, I will wrap us here. I want to thank each of the panelists for sharing your insight today with the Udacity and broader community. And I want to let everyone joining know if you want to connect with career coaches further or just learn more about them and their work, you can find Robin and the rest of the Woken career coaching team at iamwoken.com. We'll send these in some follow-up communications if you don't have a pen handy. You can find Nirmala and many other expert career coaches at tryexponent.com. And it's also worth noting that Udacity subscribers get a full year of access to Exponent's interview prep platform. And I believe that comes with unlimited live peer mock interviews for no extra cost. So if you haven't checked out Exponent and you love Nirmala's advice today, please go and do that. And then finally, you can find Melanie at findsucceedachieve.com. And you can also find Melanie, as we mentioned a couple times, as the expert instructor in Udacity's newest courses on how to optimize your resume, how to optimize your cover letter, and how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, which I believe is coming next week. Those courses are currently available completely for free, but only for a few days more. So please hurry if you're interested in checking those out. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. We will be sharing a recording and we'll do our best to clean up any quality or audio issues you may have experienced in that recording if you want to double back and listen to anything over. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, have a great day and best of luck in your career journeys. Thanks, everyone.